Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day. It's been a while. It's now July 4th, but there have been 18 mass shootings since I last filmed. Still sucky. Not getting any better. There are multiple things I want to go over since it's been so long. There's been a lot of instances that have happened. The first thing I want to talk about is the leaked Trump tapes, where he's basically admitting that he has this classified information that he's not supposed to have and showing people. Now, he has some interesting excuses, reasoning, logic behind it. He says there's nothing wrong with his voice in that audio. He also says that he hasn't seen the audio, but you can hear the paper shuffling in it. So if he hasn't seen the audio, how can he hear paper shuffling in it, or how does he know that paper is shuffling in it? He also claims that he didn't have documents, he had papers. I'm not sure he grasps what the term documents is. He also said that they were not top secret military plans, that they were plans for a golf course or architectural plans. In other words, he makes no sense. His defenses make no sense. It's kind of like when the whole FBI thing went down and he was talking about how it was okay that he had them because he declassified them. But at the same time, he was talking about how the FBI planted everything. So did they plant it, or is it okay that he had it? No one knows. I mean, we do, but he apparently doesn't understand what exactly is happening. He also is trying to claim that everything he did was perfectly legal. All the documents he had was perfectly fine because of the Presidential Records Act. And I know I've gone over this before, but that argument is just shit. Because if you read the Presidential Records Act, it's the exact opposite of what he claims is in it and why it makes it okay. So I know this isn't going to change anyone who supports him at this point. I don't think there is anything that he could do that would change his base, that would make his base decide that he wasn't the guy for them. It's literally like what he said, that he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any support. I think he's lost all the support he's going to lose, and no matter what happens from here, the support he does have is unwavering. And that just blows my mind, because these are the same people who are so quick to jump on board the Biden crime family train with zero evidence, yet deny that the Trump family are criminals with a shit ton of evidence. And so the psychology of that is just fascinating to me. It's like, because it's uncomfortable to admit that you were duped, they're processing the information in such a way that it validates their continued support and belief in Trump. So rather than admitting that, they were duped, they fell for his shtick, they have to justify it and say that it's the deep state, everyone's out to get him. So no matter what he does, no matter how much evidence there is against him, they're not going to believe it. And no matter how little evidence there is against Biden, or any Democrat for that matter, they'll believe everything because it fits their narrative and it justifies their behavior. Trump made it okay to be the worst that they could be. And they like that. So moving on from that, let's talk about our lovely Supreme Court. Now, I thought for a brief moment, that maybe they were like the Supreme Court from 30s and 40s. I can't remember for sure, that they were being extremely conservative and against the people. They were overstepping their bounds, basically. And the president, FDR, at the time said, you need to get your act together, understand your boundaries, or we're going to expand the court. So they were like, oh, well, shit, maybe we need to start behaving appropriately. And that's what brought us, they ruled on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. So they went from being an incredibly conservative Supreme Court to actually approving some of the most popular socialist programs. So I thought maybe with this Supreme Court and how they were stopping Alabama and other red states from their gerrymandering, that maybe that was the case in this instance. But they proved me wrong. I lost all shred of hope. For one, they completely legalized the discrimination of the LGBTQ plus community on an entirely hypothetical situation. I mean, the lady does not have the website, her business website, her wedding design website set up. It's not in actuality. And the person that she said that approached her that would want this website, he knows nothing about it. He's married, and he is married to a woman and has a child. So he's not looking to get married. He's not looking to get married to another man. He's already married, and he's straight. So their ruling that legalizes the discrimination of the LGBTQ plus community was based on nothing. They should have thrown it out, but instead they used it to justify continued hatred and bigotry towards the LGBTQ plus community. And that's just so infuriating to see. We had made such great strides. We legalized gay marriage. It was no longer looked at twice to see two women and two men holding hands in public. It was normalized. And now, because of the fear of this right-wing Supreme Court and politicians, they have stoked the fear of their supporters. And that is causing this huge amount of vitriol against this community. And now it's legal. It's okay. You can just say, nah, I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to take your business because I don't like the fact that you're gay. That's gross. It's disgusting. It's disappointing. And it's infuriating. All right. Now the second thing that they did is that I hear a lot of people say they overturned affirmative action. Well, they didn't really. What they did is they overturned affirmative action for people of color. Affirmative action for white people is still okay. Otherwise, they would have taken on legacy admissions. Now, with affirmative action, the people who benefited the most from that were white women. And the people who are legacy admissions, 70% are white. Now with affirmative action, there was this misconception that if you had this person who was wildly qualified for admission into Harvard or any Ivy League, that that person would be thrown out for a person of color who was not qualified. But that is false. The person of color still had to be qualified, and oftentimes even more qualified than the white person, because they had to prove themselves more. All it did was make inherent racism that we all have just because of our society, made people stop and think, hey, maybe we should look at this person of color for admittance into our program because they are wildly qualified, instead of just seeing a Black person and automatically assuming that they're not qualified, thug, the typical racial stereotypes. That's all it did. But like I said, the people who took the most advantage of it was white women. And so if they were really talking about being colorblind, as the Supreme Court's used to justify this, they would have eliminated legacy admission. Because with legacy admission, you don't necessarily have to qualify. You just had to have family that went to that school. And so that's some more bullshit from the Supreme Court. And I know most Americans approve of this decision. But I think that a lot of Americans fell for the misconception of it, of the fact that a qualified white person would be overlooked for an unqualified person of color. And so I think that's the perception that a lot of people had of affirmative action. But that's just not the case. And they're listening to conservative talking points and believing what conservatives were talking about, which is happening an awful lot lately because conservatives are loud. And they're vocal, they're loud, they're hate-filled, and they play on your emotion and fear. Because that's what gets reactions. That's what incites people. And the Democrats are silent. I don't hear a whole lot of talk about these anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ legislation going along. They're talking policy, which is great for people who, like me, live politics and follow it all day, every day. But for those people that just pop in occasionally, you're not reaching them. They're hearing the loud emotion of the conservative, but they're not hearing the logic of the Democrats, because the Democrats are not loud and they're not responding. Now, I also want to talk about the hatred of the LGBTQ community and how Christians are trying to say that they don't really hate the LGBTQ plus community. They just don't want that shoved in their faces. So having, for 1 month, a rainbow display that celebrates that kind of diversity is shoving it in your face. But having billboards, having radio stations, having TV stations, having missionaries go door to door is not shoving Christianity in non-Christians' faces. It's that hypocrisy. And that is one of the things that just irritates me the most. I have a huge issue with people getting angry and accusing other people of doing the things that they actually themselves are doing. Saying that I don't like it when you do it, but if I do it or agree with what's happening, it's okay. It doesn't count. And that's just infuriating. So there's a lot to be angry about. One of the things that I have just read about recently that just blows my mind is the fact that there are people in the LGBTQ plus community that are talking about getting rid of the T and the Q. And they're justifying it by saying that Those two categories are bringing the rest of us down. They're ruining the movement. And that seems to be what the Republicans are targeting. Well, that's bullshit, for one. We're all a community and we're all in this together. If you feel like it's okay to throw a marginalized group within your group under the bus, then you're no better than the bigots who are trying to legislate everyone out of existence. Now, the Supreme Court ruling about the gay website wedding thing was against the LGB, not the T and the Q. So throwing the T and the Q out and throwing them under the bus and ostracizing them will not fix it. It will just make them focus even more on the rest of us. So we need to just stand together. We're stronger together. Our support for each other is critical. The amount of hate crimes against the LGBTQ plus community has increased exponentially in the last couple of years because of the right wing's targeting of this community. And they like it. They like people hating this community because it distracts their followers, their base, their supporters from the things that the Republicans are doing or not doing. By stoking this division and this hatred, they're able to quietly talk about getting rid of Social Security, stripping people of their rights, because people are too distracted by fear and hatred. And that's what they want. That's why we cannot let it happen. We're stronger united. Diversity is power. So, like I always say, vote. No matter how big, how small, how inconsequential, your vote matters. And read everything you can get your hands on. So thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.